I think I kind of think about this a
Roger
lot
that.
because there's so much that like we know that there's all these things that come along with autism that are physical disabilities and physical conditions, and that those have been used to scapegoat autism and vaccines as what's causing all of this, even though these things are also common amongst other neurotypes. They're common in families with these neurotypes. And so, like, we know that this is all a genetic connection and probably some epigenetics expression, if I'm honest.
Welcome to Herding Cats and other stories from the genesis of the neurodiversity movement with hosts Oswin, Marinike, Kasiana, and Renee.
Hi, everyone. We're Foundations for Divergent Minds. I'm Oswin Latimer. I am the executive director of FDM.
Awkward pause. Okay, I'm going next. I'm Marinike. I'm a board member. I do research and advocacy and all that jazz.
I'm Kasiana Asasamas. I certainly have a title.
And I'm Renee Martin. I've managed to miss all the rest of these, and I believe my official title is Outreach Director.
Some professional.
Totally.
We're not, it's a podcast. We're not supposed to be professional. We're supposed to be allowing people to make parasocial relationships with us, which they already have. So it just enhances them.
It's true. We are enhancing our parasocial relationships with the autistic community. And boy, howdy, is there a lot to talk about and sound exactly like ourselves today.
Yeah.
Right?
We thought we were going to talk about the organization and where we came from, but instead we decided with everything else on in the world today that we are going to pivot and talk about a lot of really hard topics, and they're going to be filled with a lot of history and a lot of current. Uh,
I'm going to be fun
yeah.
today.
So we're going to tackle some pseudoscience, and we're going to tackle some vaccine crap, and we're gonna tackle some athlete supremacy, and these will probably come out in separate orders, so it's not gonna be one episode for all of them, but yes.
Then, of course, we got to talk about the racism in our community, that too.
Yeah.
And because that all ties as part of it in the classism. And not to make a plug, but I'm going to make a plug. If y'all haven't listened to some of our earlier podcasts about this, I'm not trying to say that we predicted a lot of the stuff that's happening, but we predicted a lot of stuff that's happening. So listen to some
I
of those,
like
in context.
I like the word foretold because it's not like we predicted it. We just knew who the people were and where this stuff comes from, and this was very predictable if you've
Unfortunately.
known the people involved.
Happened in accordance. It happened in accordance with the prophecy.
Or like, again, when your diagnosis is based particularly on pattern recognition and skills, be surprised when everybody meets the pattern recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, people did exactly what they said they would do and what they've been doing for 20 years.
Soccer.
Heaven forbid.
What shop?
Right?
Um, I think it's one of those things like when I'm watching the people online being freaked out about it suddenly, I'm like, why weren't you freaked out as soon as RFK was like part of the team that was like,
Because they believed his lies when he was like, "Oh, I'm not going to do this. Oh, this is not that." Like they
but
actually believed it. They gaslit themselves.
there's 20 years of evidence that proves otherwise.
But you see, the thing is, and I'm getting into this in the narcissistic history podcast now. People don't. Our community has a bit of a problem with believing things or learning things that happened before they personally were part of the community for various reasons that I should not be allowed to speculate on because they encourage me to be not the person Mr. Rogers wants me to be or the person Captain Rogers wants me to be. And I actually care what Captain Rogers thinks, even though he's a fictional character.
I think I kind of think about this a
Roger
lot
that.
because there's so much that like we know that there's all these things that come along with autism that are physical disabilities and physical conditions, and that those have been used to scapegoat autism and vaccines as what's causing all of this, even though these things are also common amongst other neurotypes. They're common in families with these neurotypes. And so, like, we know that this is all a genetic connection and probably some epigenetics expression, if I'm honest.
Don't
And
get me started on the genes, Oswin. You know better.
I know, I know. But you said you were talking about genes before we popped on, and so
We
my
did.
brain went there. So, but I don't know who wants to go ahead and talk about what RFK has been saying for years because I think it's present, especially given what we're talking about here. And I'm also going to pull up Remy Yergo's post that they posted yesterday, so I can read it. But if somebody else wants to start, I will. While I'm pulling that up, then yeah, we can do that.
I mean, for years, and by years, I mean half of my life, and I am both old and I think the youngest person on this podcast right now. He has been talking about how there's an autism epidemic caused by vaccines, but he is not he's not anti-vaccine. He is pro-safe vaccine. He is a vaccine skeptic. This has, constantly, this has been a thing. And, he's in a high place. So he's got a bunch of people kissing up to him. Oh gosh, I'm going to need to look up to get exact quotes because the thing I'm actually really excited to tell y'all about is the entirely unqualified person he hired to crunch his data.
So I am going to go ahead and read Remy's while you pull that up because they get into that. Okay, so Remy's post, and it is a public post, so people can go find Remy Yergo on Facebook, and this post is there. It says folks who have been in autism disability spaces for a while have rightly observed that there's nothing new about RFK's recent statements, both the sentiments themselves and the person making the sentiments. Anyone remember his 2005 Salam piece, for example? He described the Greers as quote unquote scientists fighting the good fight. You know what RFK's recent comments rhetorically set the stage for? Murder. Direct quote from his press conference yesterday: autism destroys families, and more importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which is our children. Also, this is catastrophic for our country. His contention that autistic people are incapable of dating, paying taxes, writing poetry, toileting, are the anthem memes, I think is how you say it. Arguments missing one or more core premises. Spelled out, he is in effect implying dating, paying taxes, writing poetry, and toileting are key components of personhood. Autistic people will not date, pay taxes, write poetry, or use toilets. Therefore, autistic people are missing key components of personhood. If quote unquote you're not a person argument is a key authorization of filicide and state murder narratives. It's eugenics in action. It traffics in the ableist ideals that valorize normative societal or sociality. Only coupled cis hetero people are valuable to the nation state. Only dues paying citizens are valuable to the nation state. Only people we perceive to be the right kind of sentient/creative are valuable to the nation state. Only people whose bodily functions map onto our up notions of civility and decorum are valuable to the nation state. It's really not accidental that he gave the examples he did. He's recycling age-old tropes about what constitutes a living person. If autism is a quote-unquote catastrophe and a fate worse than death, then killing autistic people is a mercy, a kindness. These are not big argumentative leaps. Children's Health Defense, the org that RFK founded, boasts a media program effort that is led by Polytomy of Vax and Who Killed Alex Bortolakis. Did I say it right? Same. Also remember too that RFK is one of the production team for Vaxxed. In particular, Who Killed is an apologia for child murder created in collaboration with Andrew Wakefield, the discredited anti-vaxxer physician who collected blood samples at child's birthday parties. In 2013, 14-year-old Alex Bortolakis, I think I'm really butchering it, I'm thinking,
Portalicus, I think.
was brutally murdered by his mother and godmother. The documentary cloaks itself in a whodunit rhetorical question, but the arc of the film suggests that autism, rather than the murdering parent, resulted in Alex's death, because Alex was dead before he was even dead. I spent yesterday evening in part rewatching clips of Tommy commenting on Alex's death. And in a news segment from more than a decade ago, she instructed a reporter to Google autism and abuse and murders, insinuating that all three search terms are naturally co-occurring companions. RFK's claim that autism is a preventable disease is yet another rhetorical lens for broad-scale experimentation. I'm waiting for bated breath for RFK to hire the bleach folks next. It's also important to place this commentary in context with the recent murder of Victor Perez, a non-speaking brown autistic teenager with cerebral palsy who was shot by cops 9 times while he was behind a chain link fence. The narrative RFK is rehashing, which again is a well-worn disability narrative, creates openings for actors to suggest that autism kills, and thus killing autistics can be a kindness both to the autistic and to the greater society. When you place this narrative in context with race, with normative valuation of speech, and ableist constructs of intelligence, with the death-wishing evil rhetoric surrounding immigrants and trans people, you get ready-made argumentative platters for who deserves life and who deserves death. And importantly, the question of deservingness facilitates between punishment and mercy, depending on the argumentative aims of the rhetor. Autistic people have been figured as both violent and subject to violence. In this way, murder rhetorically functions as a saving feature of both the autistic and the non-autistic who lie in autism's wake.
When you read that, it made me think of that Autism Speaks video that very first came out when they and Katie McCarran and mourning with Cassiano when that very first came out over poor Katie.
Yeah.
So Katie's family was incredible. Her mother can get in the dumpster, but her family, as distinct from the person who birthed her, was incredible for their time. And I'm thinking about them and how they must be reacting to seeing the resurgence of this. Because to get back to history, Katie McCarran was the first autistic child who was murdered whose killer got an actual sentence, largely because her father and grandfather were tireless in shaping the narrative in the media, and how telling people that she was loved and this was not a mercy, this was a murder. But today we're talking about quackery, and won't that be fun?
Yeah. That does lead right into the quackery now, doesn't it?
Given that the administration's hiring quacks.
Yeah.
Right, Greer is in HHS now. And they're already talking about that they're going to release information in September proving vaccine and autism combination. The vaccine head is the people that were there for safety for vaccines have left now. So
Okay, so I suspect the majority of our listeners don't actually know it. I thought it was Geyer, but they do not know. I mean, they know this is awful because they've been told this is awful. But okay, they need to know. Y'all need to know what David and Mark Geyer did. Y'all ready? This man who they hired to run data on this spurious study about vaccines causing autism, even though they do not. Once upon a time, they were giving this father and son team. One of them was actually a doctor. The one who was a doctor died just like a month ago. The one who got hired is not a doctor. They both got disciplined for in one case practicing medicine without a license, and the other practicing medicine badly. And by practicing medicine badly, I mean giving children puberty blockers,
Lupron,
and then chelating them. Lupron, yep. Yeah. knocking out
For
all of their
people
sex
for people
hormones.
that don't know what chelation is, it's when they administer drugs. Okay. Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, and then giving them chelation drugs to pull out the mercury. So, because they were saying autism is heavy metal poisoning. So, fun fact about heavy metal poisoning, a lot of the time, unless it's like really severe, they do not give chelation drugs because the side effects are horrendous. And you have a liver and kidneys to do that. And if it's not like really bad poisoning, they're just not going to do that because it's harder on your body. So, okay, they're knocking out kids' sex hormones, and then they are giving them these heavy duty drugs that are hard on your liver and kidneys. Children have died from chelation. Kids have lost kidneys to chelation. Their rationale for doing this is that testosterone and mercury cause sheets, and that's why these kids aren't getting better from just the chelation. This is technically true. Mercury and testosterone can cause sheets. However, they do not cause sheets in the human body unless you are a vastly different organism than I do, because the one case in which they do is in hot benzene. I feel like this is very important for everybody to know. The man who is running the numbers is, number one, not a doctor. Number two, he got disciplined for practicing medicine without a license, and the medicine he was practicing was predicated on a hypothesis that that required the presence of hot benzene in a person.
So not a doctor and doesn't even know basic chemistry.
Doesn't know basic chemistry, and he is
Not a doctor.
not, and he's also not like a statistician. Like, this is not his job. He is in no way qualified. He has an agenda. He will lie, and he hurt children. Also, like, can we just take a look at how they were giving? Oh yes, we will uncritically give children puberty blockers if they are autistic, but we will not give children who ask for puberty blockers the exact same thing.
Which is mildly interesting when you think about the number of autistic trans children.
Yeah.
Nobody's ready for that
Oh,
conversation.
I've been trying to have that conversation with people in some philanthropy groups because I think that's an important thing to know because it's also that
Right.
they're going to start targeting autistic trans adults as not being able to get um our hormones as well because that's one of the things that they've been doing when they've been floating all of these medical bills to prevent children. A lot of them have been including autistic people in it, like
Right.
autistic adults. But like we're talking about, it's so weird that this pseudoscience is gonna be and is being used, but at the same time, it's just so messed up
It's
because
messed up, but it's the playbook.
it is the playbook and it's working. They're being successful with it as much as our community wants to believe that we will somehow get out of this easily. We're not. Because this
I
has
want to
been
read some.
believed for so long. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to read something that so there's been a lot of talk about all of these different things, and so I was talking with Camille Proctor, who's a neurodivergent Black mom who founded the Color of Autism, has an autistic son, and who did like a breakdown for people about Geyer, a lot of the issues with with Geyer and his son, and the things that they did, and so forth, like that. That Cassiana already kind of broke down here about the risks, how it's used for precocious puberty and prostate cancer and how it, impacts, the chemical castration process, the risks and, again, how he's not only, lost his licensure and was fined, et cetera, and how dangerous his, what he's doing is. But one thing that Camille posted was basically the push to identify and eliminate the perceived quote unquote causes of autism raises concerns about which aim to improve the human population. Eugenics' dark history is rooted in racism and ableism, has led to forced sterilization and human rights abuses. This timeline is unrealistic. Finding the quote-unquote environmental cause of autism by September 2025 is a timeline experts deem unrealistic given the complexity of autism. We can't wait to see what groundbreaking treatments RFK Jr. and David Geyer unveil from their 6-month miracle study. Probably good old eugenics wrapped up in pseudoscience. Nothing says compassionate healthcare like suppressing puberty in autistic children and pumping them full of drugs meant for prostate cancer, all based on a discredited mercury theory from the early 2000s. Because history always repeats itself, right? Black and brown children will be the first to quote unquote benefit from these experimental unproven treatments, just like they were during the Tuskegee study, just like when Rosemary Kennedy was lobotomized to protect the family's image. Now it's autism, and it's happening again. Eugenics never left. It just rebranded. Meanwhile, our communities are begging for basic access to healthcare, therapy, and diagnostic services, and this is what RFKJ is funding. Another shady, quote-unquote, study built on junk science and whitewash eugenics. This isn't just bad policy, it's a distraction from what we really need: real support, real services, real inclusion. And so I just was feeling that, so much, and I thought it was so, and I was saddened by the fact that someone got in a parent, got in the comments and were basically saying, what about us, those of us who have kids with severe or profound autism? And, and
So
Camille wrote back, look, I know that there are families stuck on waiting lists, lacking support and care. People we're suffering even before these funding cuts, but now we're playing games and trying to fight battles that are just illusions. He wants us to go backward. This money is not being allocated to families and individuals. Your child has a need for support, not stigma. He's not going to increase disability supports, caregiver supports, and enhance lives. So basically there's this game that's being played where they're playing against one another, this fake, false sense of scarcity, and using people's exhaustion and the confusion and this whole wrapped up in this miracle of, oh, we're going to do something now. This other administration didn't try to do that, as if there haven't been thousands and thousands of studies, looking at this already. We're wasting time.
I think the thing I'm thinking about with this is how this then goes into how a lot of the autistic people online, influencers online, are responding to this. Because we know who's going to be subjected to this. We know
Right.
it's going to be people or autistic people that are non-speaking. We know it's going to be the autistic people with intellectual disabilities. We know it's going to be the black and brown autistics. We know who it's going to be. And it's not the people that can show that we have humanity. It's the people that everyone ignores their humanity. And it really
And
upsets
there
me.
will be there's going to be scope creep. Like, did you get your kid SSI for their autism? It's going to scope creep, but it's going to start absolutely where you say.
And that scares me because, like, how many kids are going to end up having all these really, really terrible treatments, all these very, very heavy medical treatments that really tear down a person's body, like, because that's what those treatments are meant to do, because you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
treat some really hard, those medications are meant to treat some really, really harsh conditions that the cost benefit is worth it if it's used for the actual legit things. But now we're going to pull it over here, and those kids are just going to suffer more because we're both not getting services and also then tearing up their body.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
If y'all humor me one more time, I just want to read another thing because, like, there's been a lot of things that people have been communicating about it. So, Black Spectrum Scholar mentioned, shared some confusion, basically saying a lot of the responses from autistic people defending RFK's statements revealed how deeply many of us have tied our self-worth to productivity and how much internalized capitalism shapes our views of value. And I'm bringing this up because I know we were going to talk about like the aspects of supremacy and all that stuff, that the past element as well as the current. And it's just important to share this. So Black Spectrum scholar goes on to say there are, like Renee was just saying, there are autistic people who will never hold jobs. There are autistic people who need 24/7 support. There are autistic people who will never speak or who may rely on feeding tubes. There are autistic people who use mobility aids. Autistic people who do not live independently. There are autistic people who do not perform the kinds of behavior the society deems as quote unquote acceptable or quote unquote productive. And such autistic people still deserve to be treated with respect, compassion, and dignity. Our worth should not be defined by how well we can mimic neurotypical behavior or how, quote unquote, independent we seem to be. All autistic lives are worthy, not just the ones that fit neatly into socially acceptable molds. We must fight for the liberation of all autistic people. And that's what our movement is supposed to be about to begin with. Yeah, and that's what I think that's what people are losing. They're seeking this unattainable reality of pseudo normalcy or anything goes because this person is so broken and depraved. And when that happens and you dehumanize people, we've seen in history where that goes.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's why we started this podcast, right? We started it because people have forgotten all of this. And it was needed. And I didn't think that we would have to go here this fast, this quick. Right?
Here we are.
But we're here, and so we need to be talking about what this rhetoric is actually saying. Because the response to try and defend ourselves is not the answer. We have to understand what all this looks like, what these treatments are. So especially as we're talking to parents can know what those things are. So that if people are starting to try and force them to do that, if that's the case, then being able to help support families in knowing what that it will do to your kid's body, what that will do to everything. And at the same time, the need for us to build up other things that can help support families, because clearly the government's not going to do it. It falls on all of us that know how to do it. And because there's nothing left for people.
Can I say how much I resent the fact that those of us who are marginalized, we're disabled people with a lot going on, struggling to survive with our own challenges, how frustrating it is to me that we always have to be the ones to come in and play Captain Saba all the time. It's not things were already broken. We were making progress, and now they've basically dialed us back at least a decade, if not more. And it is just so tiresome. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
100 years.
It's exhausting. And the gaslighting, like people telling me I was being hysterical. And it's like, well, firstly, telling me that I'm being hysterical, like that particular word is fighting words. Secondly, clearly I was not.
Yeah. Or how about, well, we lived through Biden. You can live through it. Well, you had nothing to fear, and we do. So shut up.
Like a lot of people didn't live. Like, look at this. The literal goal of this is that I don't live through it. And there's a lot of other people who, it's much more.
Yeah.
Said out loud that the goal is that they don't live through this. So maybe, never call anybody hysterical again and fight me.
Ask the people in El Salvadorian prisons how they feel about the two. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention the 5 more they're going to build for us homegrown. Sorry.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Of homegrown, yeah, who committed the great crime of
existing while
disabled, while not whatever they want us to be, but
existing while disabled,
existing while queer, existing while
knowing
not
the First
whatever.
Amendment,
calling attention to like what they're actually talking about doing. Like, come on.
Thanks for listening to Herding Cats. If you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. It really helps us grow our community with your help.